Hello and welcome. Today we'll be looking into early literacy assessments. You're going to look at how to measure alphabet knowledge through DIBELS Next letter naming fluency. Alphabet knowledge is one of the most important foundational skills for early readers because it helps children understand the relationship between letters and sounds. Before students can decode words, they must first be able to recognize letters, name them, and understand the sounds they represent. Research has consistently shown that alphabet knowledge is a strong predictor of later reading success. Students that can quickly and accurately identify letters and their sounds are more likely to become fluent readers because they can focus on understanding the text rather than struggling to recognize letters. Alphabet knowledge truly is the foundation to reading. To track my students' alphabet knowledge, one assessment I can administer is the DIBELS Next Letter Naming Fluency Assessment, which is a universal screener, and it is administered as a benchmark at beginning, middle, and end of the year. Along with it is used for progress monitoring regularly to track growth over time. So, what can we learn about our students? Well, we get quantitative data on the number of correct letter names identified in 1 minute. This assessment shows how accurately students can identify and name upper and lowercase letters and how quickly they can retrieve them from memory. The benchmark scores show 4 different color-coded categories. Blue is above benchmark, green is right on benchmark, yellow signifies at risk, and red shows significant risk for learning difficulties. This can then guide ourselves as educators to provide specific and explicit interventions. When administering DIBELS Next letter naming fluency, there is only one difference in my district between benchmark and progress monitoring, and that is who administers the test. For benchmark, an interventionist will administer the test, whereas for progress monitoring, a classroom or special education teacher can. Aside from that, everything else is the same. This specific assessment is 1 minute long. It is one student per test administrator, so individual. It is taken in a quiet environment with no distractions, and there are only 2 materials necessary: a device, typically an iPad or laptop, to time and record scores, along with the printed materials for students to be reading off of. There are a few things to consider as someone who is administering and interpreting this assessment. First, it is a timed test, so students might be anxious or nervous, which would affect performance, so being an encouraging presence is important. Along with, the educator needs to have a learning environment where they can step away and administer the test for 1 minute while students are either working independently or with another adult. As well as, the room either needs to be quiet or there needs to be a space to go that is quiet. Also, the person administering the test needs to be properly trained for consistency across students. There are many strengths to DIBELS Next letter naming fluency. The first being that it is quick and efficient. It only takes 1 minute to administer. Also, as previously stated, it is a predictor of early reading success, as well as the test is scored for you with the click of a button. The program even sets growth goals for students to stay on track, and it is incredibly user-friendly. The data provided is objective, and educators are easily able to progress monitor to continue tracking growth throughout the year. Finally, this assessment is research-based with strong reliability and validity. It is widely used in schools. On the other side of things, the weaknesses include that the test only measures letter naming and does not include the sounds associated with the letters. Since the test is timed, that can cause anxiety and students may perform below their capabilities. Since the test exclusively tests letter names, it should not be used in isolation. If a student scores poorly, the test does not explain why, and the student may need testing done with an additional assessment. Along with, this is one small snapshot into the student's literacy journey, and more assessments will need to be used to identify how their fluency, vocabulary, comprehension, etc. is looking. Also, this assessment in most instances will only be used when students are in kindergarten and early first grade. But then after that, it'll go away and it is not necessary to be used. Finally, the assessment has disadvantages for English learners, students with speech or language impediments, and students with processing difficulties, which means it may not show exactly what every student is capable of. Using this assessment, Using the assessment data, educators can identify students who need early intervention. They can form instructional groups based on needs identified from patterns and data, evaluate the effectiveness of literacy instruction and interventions that are being administered, and make changes where necessary. Personally, while I teach fifth grade and do not administer letter name fluency, I do use DIBELS Next for fluency, comprehension, and accuracy, and it absolutely helps me organize my groups during my intervention time. If I saw a group of students all struggling with the same thing, then I would provide an intervention to support them. For letter name fluency, if I saw a group of students were all missing the same few letters, then I'd put them in a group to continue working on this skill. Particularly in kindergarten and first grade, this assessment should be at the very least administered at the beginning, middle, and end of the year to track who is at risk for reading difficulties. This data can then be used alongside other assessments such as phonemic awareness tasks and phonics inventories to provide a more complete picture of a student's literacy development. Educators should also use DIBELS Next letter naming fluency as a progress monitoring tool for students receiving interventions. Educators should regularly review data to adjust instruction, create small groups, and track student growth. Using DIBELS Next letter naming fluency assessment will support educators in identifying any gaps in student learning before they become larger as reading becomes more challenging. Knowing the alphabet is the foundation that sets students up to be successful readers. By identifying students that need additional support, teachers can start interventions now and provide small group instruction to ensure that students do not fall further behind. Early intervention is critical, and this assessment shows um, how educators need to be proactive rather than waiting for students to significantly struggle. Here are my references. And finally, thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation.